Hi, and welcome to Crafts with Ash DIY and Decor. My name's Ashley, and today I put together a whole video of my favorite must-try Easter DIYs. And I absolutely love them. They're so colorful and so fun and so easy, so you have to try them. First, if you haven't done so already, please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, hit that little notification bell, and in the drop-down menu, click all so you're notified about all notifications. I upload a bunch of times a month, and I have so many great ideas coming up. We're going to do the nursery makeover, the playroom makeover. We're going to start getting my backyard patio and gazebo ready for summer and the pool area. So you're definitely going to want to hang with me for a while. So definitely subscribe and turn on those notifications. All right, now it's time to hop into these Easter DIYs. For this first DIY, you're going to need this little package of the paint your own little ceramic bunny. Now all you have to do is take some wire cutters or some scissors and just pluck out the little ring on the top. It comes out super easy. Next, I took one of these short dowel rods that I got from the Dollar Tree, and this is the shorter one. They do have longer ones, but like I said, you're going to want to go with the shorter one. And then I just cut off like a third of the bottom. Then I decided where I wanted to hot glue it on my bunny, and I kind of wedged it on his little back in between his ears. Now you can definitely use E6000 for this and hot glue, but I use Gorilla glue sticks, so it's pretty strong. I've really never had a problem. But once I figured out where I wanted my dowel rod to go, I put a generous amount of hot glue underneath the dowel rod and all around it, and then held it there for a few minutes. That way it could set. Then I put it off to the side. Next, I grabbed this pack of little chalkboard tags from the Dollar Tree, and by using my wire cutters, I just pulled off the clothespin on the back. Then I took a small paintbrush and my Waverly chalk paint in white and just outlined the unfinished wood part around the chalkboard part. Next, I took that Waverly chalk paint in white and painted my bunny and the dowel rod. The reason why I decided to hot glue the dowel rod onto the bunny first is because I knew that I would need a lot of hot glue for this, so I figured that I would be able to paint over the hot glue as well, and the whole thing will be white. I went between the big foam brush and then the little paintbrush to kind of get in all the little crevices and curves and indents in my bunny. And then, like I said, I painted the dowel rod and the whole thing. After all that was dry, I took my elephant gray paint from Waverly and a makeup sponge, and I dry brushed over the bunny. So I dipped it in the lid, and then I dabbed it off on the plate, and then just lightly brushed over the bunny with the makeup sponge. I wanted to give this like a rustic look, and I really wanted to mimic what I saw on the Kirkland ad. I also took the paint and rubbed it around the dowel rod as well. Then I kind of went back and forth between the white paint and the gray paint until I got the look that I liked. Next, I grabbed that little chalkboard and my chalk marker, and I wrote my name, but of course you can write any name on it, and then I hot glued it to the top of the dowel rod. This made for a cute little place card. Now here's the one from Kirkland's, and is $9.99. I was able to achieve this look for a fraction of that cost. What do you think? For my next DIY, you're going to need this sign from the Dollar Tree that has the little bunny head and 2 carrots, and then this longer sign that says Hello Spring, or there is a summer one as well. Now you can use the big bunny one that they have. I just thought that was a little too long for this project, so this smaller one was perfect. So the first thing I did was cut off the tag and the twine hanger up top on the bunny head, and then I pulled off the twine stapled down on all the carrots. Then after removing the bow on the front, I turned it over and sanded down at the bottom where the little staple holes were. Next, I took the jar of spackling that I got from the Dollar Tree and I filled in my holes. I let it dry and then I sanded all of it down. That way it was a smooth surface for me to paint. Next, I took my ivory chalk paint from Waverly and I painted my bunny head in that. Now, I was at the bottom of my jar, so it's not going to look like it's covered. I would have given this 2 coats, but I did not have enough to do that. But 1 coat seemed to be just fine. Then I set that off to the side to dry. Next, I took the long sign and I pulled off the little welcome on the front, or hello, sorry, the hello on the front. And then I flipped it over, cut off the twine hanger, and sanded down the back. Then I also painted that with my ivory chalk paint from Waverly. Now you can see, like I said, I'm at the bottom of my jar. I'm gonna have to get more. So I just used what I had and it seemed to be fine. After both of those pieces were dry, I took them and I hot glued the head on top of the long sign to kind of create a bunny body. Next, to create a shiplap look, I took a ruler and by using a pencil, I drew a line going down the middle of the whole thing. I used the part where the 2 bunny ears come together as my middle starting point and then went down. Then I took my finger and rubbed it so it kind of smudged it a little bit. Next, I took my Waverly Antique Wax and a makeup sponge and I just distressed and dry brushed over the edges of my sign. I went around the whole thing, including the head as well. Then I went a little bit on the inside too. Then I took my black paint marker and I traced down the center line that I had drawn in with my pencil. Next, I took my Waverly Antique Wax and just kind of distressed the middle again. Now, tip, you're going to want to wait until that marker dries because I did smudge it, but at least it was an easy fix. I just took the paint brush that I used to paint it ivory and I just painted over it and fixed it and it was fine. Then I took my sanding sponge and sanded the whole thing down to dull down the brown and to blend all my colors. Next, I grabbed this pack of cookie sheets that I got from the Dollar Tree and I cut out the middle section so all I was left with was the bumpy surface. Now, I only used one of my pans, so you can put the other pan off to the side. Then I traced just the bunny ears onto the pan and then cut them out. Now, when I cut them out, I actually cut in between them so that way I had 2 separate pieces. Now, the goal here is to make my pan piece a little smaller than the actual ear. So all I did was just keep measuring and cutting until I got the size that I wanted. I wish that there was a method to how I did this, but there really isn't. I just kept testing it, measuring it, putting it down, and then just cutting where I saw necessary. Now, when I got my first one cut out, how I liked it, I was like, oh, perfect, I'll just use this to do the second one. Nope, for some reason, it did not line up. So what I did was I just kind of did it in pieces. So I traced around the bottom of it, and then I kind of used the top of my first one to measure the top of the second one. I hope that all makes sense. I couldn't cut it in all one piece because I don't know, for some reason these ears must not be even because they did not measure up, like they didn't match. So again, I just kind of tested it, cut it, measured it, put it down, and kind of went back and forth until I got 2 pieces the size that I needed. Next, I took my pumpkin orange paint from Apple Barrel and mixed it with black. Don't ask me why I did this. I was trying to come up with a burnt orange look. I should have put brown. I don't know why I put black. Anyway, I totally screwed this part up, but I wanted to leave it in there to show you that yes, crafters and DIYers and YouTubers make mistakes just like everybody else. But I really just kept adding orange until it was more orange than it was like poop color, I guess. I hate to say it like that, but what I ended up doing was just using the mixture that I made, but then I ended up just putting the pumpkin orange straight on top of my brush and then painting it. So now you can see that it's way more orange than that ugly color that I made. So I just did this for both. Then put them off to the side so they could dry. Next, I took those 2 carrots that I got off of that original sign with the bunny head, and I took those twine bows off. Now, keep those twine bows close because we will use them in just a little bit. I took the scrap that I had left from my pan, and I traced just the tops of the carrots. Then I went ahead and cut them out. Now I realized the bottom of my carrot was just a little too long, or the bottom of the top of the carrot, if that makes sense. So I lined it up on top of the carrot, and then I made a crease where the indents are, where it's obvious that that's the end of the top of the carrot, like the planty part. And I made that crease so I knew where to cut it, and I did it for both. Next, I quickly hit both carrots with my sanding sponge because they did have a few holes from those staples. Then I took that ugly concoction that I had made and I painted the bottom of my carrots that would be orange. And again, I added more orange to make it more orangey. Now, it doesn't look like that right now, but I just put this base coat on and then kept adding it as I saw fit until I got the look that I wanted. Then I put those aside and let them dry. There is a lot of painting in this particular craft, so I hope that you like to paint. Alright, so next I took my Christmas green apple barrel paint and the tops of those carrots that I had cut out, and I just painted each of those. Now, this I didn't cut down to make smaller like we did the bunny ears. This is just going to fit perfectly right on top of each carrot. So I just painted it, and I actually gave these 2 coats. Next, I took a piece of scrap foam board that I had in my stash and cut out a little triangle that is going to be the nose. Then I painted that orange as well. Now, when I went to add more orange, I accidentally squirted out a ton. See, it just all came out at once. So I used that to paint over my nose, and it actually kind of worked out because I used the rest that was on that paper over those carrots, and it gave me the perfect shade of orange that I wanted. Next, I took this Happy Easter egg sign that has the 4 eggs, And I grabbed this sign that I had in my stash and took off the feet at the bottom. We're actually going to be using those for hands, but I thought that those were perfect. Now, if you don't have those, you can always use foam board to cut these shapes out as well. And actually, I was thinking that what would be perfect are those color your own ornaments in the egg shape, but I have not been able to find those this year at all at any of my Dollar Trees. So I am on the hunt for those. But after I got all of my pieces out, I used my heat gun to heat up the hot glue and then used my scraper to scrape off any hot glue residue that was on there. Then I sanded each one of my pieces. Next, I took my Waverly chalk paint in white and gave each of my 4 pieces a coat of that. And I also made sure to paint around the edges as well. Now, I wanted these to be stark white, so I ended up giving each of these 2 coats. After those were painted, I put them off to the side to let them dry. Then I grabbed my big sign and my little nose and I kind of positioned it where I thought I would want it. Next, I grabbed a black permanent marker and drew on whiskers on my bunny face. Then I hot glued the nose right in the middle. Next, by using my black paint marker, I drew 2 little eyes and the mouth. Now, I purposely put each of the eyes on each side of the line going down the middle, and then that's where my center was, and I did the same with the mouth. Then I decided that the whiskers were just a little too light, so I just went over it one more time with that black permanent marker. Next, I grabbed my little bunny ears and lightly sanded over the top of them to bring out the silver from underneath. After they were sanded, I hot glued each one of them down on the ears. Now, I knew that these were going to look a little different, so the only thing that I made sure of was that they matched at the bottom at the top of the head, if that makes sense. I think by adding just that little detail of the metal on top, that started bringing this whole thing together. I loved where this was going at this point. Next, I grabbed those tops of the carrots and I just brushed over lightly again with the green paint. For some reason, my green paint was just not wanting to stick to the aluminum, so I just kind of had to go over it a few times. Then I went ahead and hot glued them down to the top of each carrot. Then after my green paint dried, I went ahead and sanded over the tops of them to bring out the silver, but a huge chunk of the green came off. So I just hit it one more time and left it. I was done trying to fix it. So then I took those twine bows that I had taken off of the carrots from earlier, and I just reattached them right where the tops of the carrot met the bottom. Then I took a whole bunch of raffia and I made a big raffia bow. It was just a simple bow, just like how you would tie your shoelaces, and I hot glued it to the bottom of his head. Then I cut off the tails and made them a little bit shorter. Next, I took my 2 carrots and my 2 little hands and I arranged them so it looked like the bunny was holding on to the carrots. So I put one little paw on the top and one little paw on the bottom. Once I positioned them how I liked it, I carefully removed them and then hot glued them all down. Now, when I put the hot glue on the paws, I just put a little on the top of the paw and a little on the bottom, basically where it was going to be touching because it was elevated. But like I said, I use Gorilla Glue sticks, so I knew that this would be a strong hold. Then I pushed them down to make sure that they would not come off. Next, I grabbed those 2 eggs that we had painted white and hot glued them to the bottom of my board to make little feet. Now, when you do this, you want to make sure that the egg does not go past the bottom of the board because you want it to be flush so it will stand up straight. Then I decided that they were just a little too white for me, so I took my makeup sponge that had the black Waverly wax on it and outlined the paws and the feet. Next, I took that black permanent marker and drew in little lines to make little toes, I guess. Then I sanded it all down, and that was it. That completed this Kirkland's dupe. So here's a picture of the one from Kirkland's where they're charging $29.99. Now, by just using Dollar Tree supplies, I was able to do this for around $6 or $7. What do you think? For this next dupe, you're going to need this wood cutout of the cross. The first thing I did was cut off the twine hanger, and then I gave this a rough coat of Waverly chalk paint in white by using my chippy brush. Clearly, I was not going for full coverage here, so I did a little more than dry brushing. I wanted the majority of it to be covered, but it was okay if it wasn't completely covered. Once the white paint was dry, I took that Waverly antique wax and a different paintbrush and I painted over the cross. Then I dried that as well. After that was dry, I went back to my chippy brush with my white paint and gave it one more coat. Then I sanded the whole thing down. Next, I grabbed 16 tumbling tower blocks that I got from the Dollar Tree and gave these a rough coat of the white Waverly chalk paint. Now, I made sure to cover all of the edges and the sides, but you don't need to cover one of the thinner long sides. After my tumbling tower blocks were dry, I took them and I lined them up on the cross going up and down instead of laying them flat. So I put them on their sides. Then once I arranged them how I liked it, I went ahead and hot glued them down. Now here's a tip. I would start off by hot gluing the ends down first because as you're gonna see, I hot glued the sides down and then I had to take it off so it would line up with the ends. But the first thing I did was take 3 of the blocks and hot glue them together, and then I took another 3 blocks and hot glued those together. Then I hot glued those down to the side, but like I said, I would hot glue the end first. After all my blacks were glued down, I took that paintbrush with that Waverly Antique Wax and I dry brushed over the white paint. Now the reason why I didn't do this before was because I thought it might have been hard to get in all the crevices, so that's why I just kind of give it a base coat of the white paint and then waited to do this part at the end. So then I went between the white paint and the Waverly Antique Wax until I got the look that I wanted. I also hit all the sides as well. I made sure to sand it all down so it all blended in, and this completed this third Kirkland's dupe. I absolutely love how this came out. Here's a picture of the dupe where they're charging $64.99 for a 2-pack, and here's mine. What do you think? For this fourth DIY, you're going to need this 3-pack of mini terracotta pots from the Dollar Tree. And the first thing I did was take out one of the pots. We're only going to be using one. And then I just started hot gluing a bunch of raffia all the way around the pot to completely cover it. I just kind of put hot glue here and there, and of course every time that I started a new strand of raffia. But I went around and around and around until the whole thing was covered. As you watch me cover this pot, I want to take this opportunity to remind you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I want to thank all of you so much who are subscribers, or if you're new to my channel, welcome. I am so happy to share this hobby with you. I absolutely love to craft, and I think that you can tell that it's just a passion of mine. So thank you again so much for joining me, and if you're still with me, thank you even more for that. I know this is a long one, but I promise it's worth it. So don't forget to subscribe and also follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Now the pot in the Kirkland's piece is actually a little darker, so I decided to take my Waverly Antique Wax and just brush over my raffia using that and a makeup sponge. After my pot was completely dry, I took a piece of floral foam and I cut off just enough to fit inside my pot. Now, I didn't really need anything to stick in here. I'm basically just using it for height, because next I'm going to take this green moss and build it up in the pot, and that way I didn't have to use so much. I did make sure to add some hot glue to reinforce all of it down. Next, I took this twine carrot garland that I got from the Dollar Tree. Now, you can use the pack of twine carrots. I just was out and my Dollar Tree didn't have any more, so I had to use this. But I just cut them off their rope and then lumped them in a bundle of 3. Then I took some twine and I tied it around all 3 of my carrots right in the middle. To finish it off, I just tied it in a knot and then cut off the tails. Finally, by using a generous amount of hot glue, I hot glued the twine carrots in the middle of my pot. I did have to hold it down for a few minutes, that way it would stay, but after that, I had the perfect Kirkland's dupe. Now, the one from Kirkland's is a little bigger, but I thought this was cute because it is perfect for a tiered tray or a little shelf sitter. Here's the one from Kirkland's where they are charging $22.99, and for about $3-ish, I was able to create mine. What do you think? For this last dupe, I started off with a floral wire wreath form. Now, this one was too big. Even when I cut it down, it was still too big, so I would recommend maybe the 8-inch from the Dollar Tree. This one I got at Walmart because my Dollar Tree was all out, and I thought that it would work, but it ended up being too big, but I ended up loving the final product. So it ended up working out, but I would just recommend maybe the 8-inch. So what I did was I took my little scraper and just plucked up each of these little hangers that are holding the wire in. Then it was easy for me to just take that inner wire out. Then I took some raffia, 3 strands of raffia and some painter's tape, and taped it down to my table and then braided it all the way down. I did this for 2 strands. Now the trick to this is that you want to pull it really tight so that you have a nice tight braid. When you get to the end of the braid, I just took some tape and I just taped it off at the end and then cut off the remaining strands. I did the same at the top too. Then I repeated the steps and made another strand, so I had a total of 2 braids. After my braids were done, I took that round form again and I took my raffia braids and kind of just pinched them together. I'm going to hot glue these on the wire form. So I'm showing you here that I just pinched them together, added some hot glue, and then sandwiched the wire in between each of my raffia braids so that way none of the wire was showing through. And I did this going around the form. Now, it did not go all the way around, and that's okay because we're going to be covering the bottom with something else. So just go around as long as you can, and then that way you have enough to cover at least the top. Now, I believe the Kirkland's piece had eucalyptus, but I didn't have any and I couldn't find any in the stores. So I decided to use this wreath that I got at the Target dollar spot for $3. I'm not even sure what kind of leaves these are, but I thought that they were pretty and kind of springy, so I decided to use these. So I just went ahead and plucked a few of them off and then arranged them on the bottom so it looked like a big spray. Then when I had them arranged how I liked it, I went ahead and carefully hot glued them all down. Next, I'm taking this pick of baby's breath, well, at least that's what the Dollar Tree is calling it, that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just plucking off a few of the little vines, and I am hot gluing those down sporadically in my spray of leaves. Now you want to be careful when you do this because I got a major burn from doing this. So just maybe wear your finger protectors or something and just watch because the leaves are very thin, so that's why the hot glue is going through it. And also these little pieces are thin too, so when you go to push it out, that's when I burnt myself right there. And then I thought about using my protectors. But just watch because you can definitely burn yourself because I did. Next, I took this pack of foam glitter eggs from the Dollar Tree, and I easily pulled off the ribbon. It just comes right out. And then I arranged the eggs sporadically around the leaves and my flowers too. So I made sure to bunch 3 kind of in the middle, and then I just placed them randomly throughout. I made sure to use a generous amount of hot glue on each of the eggs, and then I kind of tucked a few of the eggs underneath the leaves. That way it looked like they were coming out from underneath them. Next, I took a bunny out of this pack of make your own ornaments that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I used some spackling again, and I just covered my hole, let it dry, and then I sanded it off. Then I painted my bunny in Waverly chalk paint in white. Then I grabbed one of these little white puffballs out of this Create Your Own Bunny kit from the Dollar Tree and hot glued it where the tail would be. After that, I decided that I wanted to distress this a little bit. Now, obviously, I would do this before I hot glued the tail on. I just didn't think of it. But I took my makeup sponge and that Waverly Antique Wax and just rubbed around my little bunny. Now, I accidentally got a little bit on the inside of my bunny, so I just went with it and distressed that too. Then I sanded it all down. Next, I grabbed this little bow that I've had for years in my stash and hot glued it to make a little bow tie. Then I took my wreath form and I hot glued the bunny in the middle at the bottom. I did use a generous amount of hot glue for this as well. to make a hanger, I just took a little bit of jute rope and I looped it through my wreath form and then tied a knot at the top. And that was it. That completed this really cute wreath. Now, like I said at the beginning, mine was a lot bigger than the one at Kirkland's, but I still love how this came out. I might actually go back and add a few more buddies just to kind of build it up a little bit. And I forgot to mention that I actually made my bunny look a little bit different. But here's a picture of the Kirkland's wreath that they're selling for $29.99. And here's mine. What do you think? DIY, I'm going to be using 3 different eggs that I got from the Dollar Tree. The first one I'm going to use is this egg on a stake, and then this double egg. I'm actually just going to be using the smaller one, and then this unfinished wood egg. So the first thing I did was take that egg on a stake, and I just plucked the stake part off, and then by using my hairdryer and that little scraper, I just heated up the glue that was holding the stake on there and just scraped off all of the rest of the stake on there. It did leave a little bit, so I did have to work at it and get it off, but eventually you're going to see that I do give up and just kind of sand it down, because I did not have all day to start plucking this off. So I got off what I could and then sanded down the rest. I also took off the little sticker, and then that way it was ready to work with. But just get off as much as you can. I mean, if it's not perfect, it's fine, it'll do. But like I said, I just kind of gave up and sanded it down. Then I flipped that one over and tore off all of those little foam flowers. They came off pretty easy. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're actually going to be working on the back of it, so just take off what you can. Then I took the unfinished wood egg, cut off the tag, and then I detached the little egg from the big egg. And then again, using my hair dryer, I heated up the little sticker and scraped that off. The reason why I leave this footage in here is because I get a lot of questions asking how I get stickers off and things like that. So sometimes I like to leave this in here so that way you can see what the process is and what works for me. I know some crafters use some Goo Gone or just a soapy rag, a wet rag. So it just kind of, you just have to use what works for you. So after I got all the stickers off and all the stakes off, I took the big unfinished wood egg and I coated it with Mod Podge. Then I took this light pink chevron scrapbook paper that I got from Hobby Lobby. And pretty much anytime you see scrapbook paper, it is going to come from Hobby Lobby. But I just went ahead and coated it with Mod Podge and then stuck my scrapbook paper on top. I thought that this would be easier than tracing the egg, cutting it out, and trying to line it up. So this is what I did for all 3. Then I grabbed the middle size egg. This is the one that had the stake on it, and I did the same thing. So I just coated the top, or at least now it's the back, with Mod Podge. And then I took this really pretty like floral paisley type of lavender or purple scrapbook paper, and then I just pushed it down. That way it was nice and smooth. Then again, I did the same thing on this last one, and this is the one that was attached to the bigger round egg. And I just put some Mod Podge on there and then stuck my scrapbook paper right on top and then used my hands to smooth it down. After all my scrapbook paper was pushed on and dry, I took my scissors and just cut around each egg. I wasn't trying to get really close to the egg because in a minute you're going to see that I take my sanding block that I got from the Dollar Tree and I sand off any excess paper. I love doing this method because it gives me that nice clean cut on the edges of whatever I am Mod Podging. So as you can see, those little strips of paper are coming off, and you want to sand in the down direction. Now, I kind of wanted to give this a little rustic look, so I did sand a little harder on the edges. That way it kind of ripped the paper a little bit and the white of the paper showed up. So as you can see, I put it down and really sanded it, and in a second, you'll see I do move it closer to the camera See how you can see how the edges are kind of ripped a little bit, and it kind of brought up the white of the paper. So I went ahead and did that on all 3 of the eggs, and then I decided to do the same thing to the middle. So I distressed the middle of each egg too, and you can see, especially on this one, that it did rip the paper a little bit, and see how it's sanding it down. I absolutely love that look. Now I didn't do it too much, I just did a little bit just to add some rustic touches and distress it, and just a little bit of dimension. After my eggs were distressed, I laid them out kind of how I wanted them. So I put the big one in the back and then just layered the 2 other ones in the front. Now the only thing that I did make sure to do is I purposely had the 2 front eggs touching the surface. So I don't know if that makes sense, but if you were to stand it up, the 2 front eggs would be touching the table or whatever you're going to put this on. So you could see the bigger egg is not touching the bottom, but I made sure that the 2 were even on the bottom and touching the surface. Then after I had them all hot glued together, I took this burlap teal or turquoise ribbon that I got from the Dollar Tree and cut a strip off, and then I cut off the ends with the wire on it. Then I went ahead and pulled the strings off the edge to give it that frayed look. Next, I laid my ribbon across the 3 eggs at the bottom so it would cover all 3, and then I hot glued it to the back. Now you want to pull tight and make sure it's taut, that way it's not very loose in the front. So after I had that all glued down, there were some little strings that were hanging off, so I just kind of cut it, and then I took this berry vine that I got from Hobby Lobby, and I love this berry vine. I'm going to be using it in a couple other DIYs too in this video, but I just love it because I love the colors. The pastel is perfect, but I did the same thing. I started in the back and then I hot glued it, and what I did was take a little piece of ribbon and cover where I hot glued it. That way it gave it extra support. Then I wrapped it around the front 2 times and then hot glued the other end to the back as well. Now you do have to hold this berry vine down after you hot glue it, that way it sticks and that way it's secure. So after I was done, I turned it over and I just decided that it needed something else. So what I did was I took this like lacy, glittery white ribbon. I honestly don't know where this came from. I stole it from my mom, so I'm not sure where she got it. But obviously I wanted the berry vine to lay on top of this, so I kind of just cut off a piece and just squeezed it underneath there. And then I did the same thing and I just hot glued each end around to the back. Now, as you can see, the back of this project is not very pretty, and I considered covering it. Usually, if you know me, I do not cover my backs. It doesn't bother me, but then I just didn't. But if you want to cover your back, you are more than welcome. To complete the front, I took that bow off of that stake that I took off that egg, and I hot glued it to the side of this little egg display. Then I decided that I wanted it to stand. I wanted the whole thing to stand instead of hanging it. So what I did was took some tumbling tower blocks and I hot glued 2 to each of the eggs. So first I started off with 1. Now the trick to this is you want to put hot glue and then kind of push it back a little bit so it leans backwards. and then just make sure it's flush to your surface. So I did one on each egg, and then you're going to see that I add another one to each of the tumbling tower blocks. So there's 2 tumbling tower blocks on each egg, and this worked out perfect. It's standing, it was very secure, so usually I can't get things to stand, so I was actually pretty proud of myself that this worked. But I absolutely love how this came out. It is so cute, and it is vintage and rustic, but still keeping with that pastel theme. But what do you think? For this next DIY, I picked up this wreath from the Dollar Tree, and it came like this. It kind of looks like an egg, so I thought it was perfect. And then I picked up these letters from Walmart. It's an H and a P. Obviously, I think you can tell what we're going to spell out here. And then I got this fabric fat quarter, and this is also from Walmart. It is a little bit more, but I just loved the color, so I decided just to grab it. So the first thing I did was I took the sticker off of that fabric and then cut the tag off of the wreath, and then I spread out the fabric and stuck my little wreath on top. Now you want to make sure that the fabric is facing up, so it's the front of the fabric, and then put your wreath on top. And then with a generous amount of hot glue, you're going to cover the back of it and then push it down. I just thought that this was the easiest way to do it instead of, again, trying to trace it out and then pull it. So you want to make sure, now this was kind of tricky because when you put the wreath down, you need to make sure that it is pulling tight. That way it's not loose in the middle. So you're kind of doing a couple things at once. But as you can see right here, it was easy for me to lift it up and then add more hot glue and then pull it real tight and then push it down. So that's kind of what I did. Now in hindsight, I could have probably done it in like smaller little areas and chunks, but I thought this worked out great. Then I went ahead and cut around it. So I cut off all the excess fabric. Then I went in with my smaller scissors. Now, I do have to say the smaller scissors from Dollar Tree didn't really work out as well as I thought they were going to, and it's probably because this is fabric and not paper. But I just went ahead and trimmed all of it up so you didn't see any fabric hanging from behind the wreath. Once my egg was covered, I put that to the side. Then I took my H and my P and I gave each of them one good coat of Waverly chalk paint in ivory. Now, the inspiration for this project actually, I believe I saw something like this at Kirkland's. I'm not sure. I have it in my head that I know I saw it somewhere, but I can't remember. And I honestly don't remember exactly what it looked like. So I just decided to add my own touch to it. But I thought that this turned out really cute. So like I said, I just gave each of these pieces a nice coat of Waverly chalk paint in ivory. And then after it dried, I took some of this petroleum jelly and in random spots, I just rubbed the jelly all over each of the letters. Then I took my ballet slipper from Waverly and I gave the H a coat of that, and then I took my yellow apple barrel paint, and I, forgive me, can't remember the name, and I just painted the P with that. Once those both were completely dry, I took this little scraper and just lightly scraped over the letters to give it that chippy wood look. Now, it did kind of come off in chunks. I just, for some reason, cannot get this technique down. I've tried to do it so many times. I mean, maybe that is what it's supposed to look like and I'm not realizing it, but it does kind of look like chippy wood now that I'm watching it like this. But I just kind of ran my scraper lightly over it to take off some of the colored paint on each. Then you're going to see that I go in and dry brush that ivory chalk paint over it just to add a little bit more distressing. But I think in the end, both of these letters turned out exactly how I wanted it to look. Next, I set those to the side to dry, and I took this long block board, I guess you want to call it, from the Dollar Tree, and again, using my hair dryer, I heated it up so I could get the tag off, and then I just gave the top, well, it was the bottom, but now it's going to be the top, the top and the sides, and each of the edges, a coat of my Waverly chalk paint in ivory. As that was drying, I took my egg again, and I took that berry vine that I was using from Hobby Lobby, and I just kind of formed some ears. So what I did was I made one little ear, and then I doubled it up and then twisted both vines together just to make it a little bit more thick and defined. And then I cut off the excess. Then I took the end of the berry garland and just did it again, but I lined it up with the first ear, that way they were both the same size. Next, I flipped over my little egg and hot glued my ears down. Now, at first, I hot glued them down a little lower than what I wanted, so you're going to see me pull them off and make them a little higher. Now, as I was editing this, I was like, dummy, why didn't you just take the ears and stick them to the top of the wreath? I could have just added some hot glue. So I actually would kind of recommend that, because these ears still ended up a little lower than what I would have wanted, and I still might go back and take them off the back and then just stick them in the actual wreath itself on top. But that's just an idea for you too, and then you don't have to mess with all this hot glue. But you live and you learn, right? Hindsight is 20/20. But either way, you just want to get your ears on there and make sure that they are secure. Now, to give my ears a little bit more support, I took some of that scrap fabric that I had cut off of the original egg, and I hot glued it to the front of each of the stems of the ears. I hope that made sense. Obviously, you can see what I'm doing, but I just added some fabric. That way, it gave it a little bit more security and won't come off. Next, I took that big wooden block and then my H, my egg, and my P. And I just kind of arranged each piece how I wanted it on that little block. And that big block is going to be the base. So what I did was put the wreath all the way in the back, and then I put the H and the P towards the front. Then just by using hot glue, I just hot glued the H down. Now, before I hot glued the wreath down, I went ahead and hot glued my P down. Now, I did line up my wreath so I knew where I wanted it, and then after that, I did hot glue my P down. So then I took my wreath or my egg or my O, whatever you want to call it, and I put a generous amount of hot glue onto the bottom and then pushed it down. Then I hot glued some tumbling tower blocks to the back of the wreath. That way it helped it stand up and it wouldn't fall backwards. But you want to make sure that it's tight, so you can see that I'm going to push it real tight in there, and so that the O is wedged right in between the blocks and the letters. So then I took some hot glue, and where the letters touched the front of the wreath, I also added some hot glue there too. I love this. I think the colors are so pretty, but you tell me, I want to know, would you have added the ears? Sometimes I keep going back and forth. My mom and I can't decide whether we like the ears, but either way, I thought this was super cute. What do you think? For my next DIY, I'm going to be using this sign from the Dollar Tree, and I specifically went with this sign because it's a little shorter than like those other really long ones, but really any one of those would work. So the first thing I did was plucked off that little chick from the front, and then I pulled off the ribbon on the back, and then I got the little staples out. Then I went ahead and sanded it. That way it was a smooth surface for me to paint on. Next, I gave my board a coat of Waverly chalk paint and ivory. Now, I really wasn't going for full coverage here. I just wanted the majority of it to be covered, but I just went ahead and painted it. While that was drying, I took this pack of unfinished wood eggs. Now, these I actually got from Hobby Lobby, but they do have them at the Dollar Tree. I just was not able to find them. And then I took these pieces of scrapbook paper that I also got at Hobby Lobby. So I just took one egg, and then instead of tracing the circle around it, I just cut off a square big enough for the egg to fit on, and then I'm gonna Mod Podge the egg onto the square and then cut it out. Kind of like what we did in that very first project, and that way it just eliminates the step of having to trace and then having to carefully cut it out and then lining it up. So I did this for 6 of the eggs, and on each of the eggs I did a different piece of scrapbook paper. So after I got all of my egg Mod Podged on, I took my scissors and just roughly cut around the egg. Then, just like the other project, I'm going to take my sanding block and sand all of the edges to make it that nice clean cut. Now again, you want to sand in the down direction, and then that way you have a nice clean edge. Then I went ahead and sanded the edges to bring out the white again to kind of give it that rustic and vintage look, just like I did in that very first project. While you watch me sand all of these down, I just want to thank you so much again for joining me today. And if you are loving what you are seeing so far, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up because it really helps to grow my channel. I also gained a ton of new subscribers in the last couple weeks, so I just want to welcome all of you if you're new and thank all of you so much for joining me. My page or my channel has literally exploded in the last couple weeks, and it could not have been without all of your support. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Here are how all the eggs looked after they have been cut out and distressed. Next, I took my board that I had painted and this ruler, and I specifically bought this specific ruler from the Dollar Tree because it was the width of Shiplap, or it looked like it could give out that look of Shiplap. So I just put it in the middle of my board, and then with a permanent black marker, I drew lines on the top and the bottom. Then I took my sanding block and I sanded it down. That way the black marker wasn't so bold and dark. And I sanded it down, that way it all blended together. Then I took those eggs and I lined them up in the middle of my board. Now at first I had each of them going straight up and down, and then I decided to angle each one of them a little bit so that way it gave a little bit more character and added a little bit more detail. Once I had them lined up how I liked it, I took these letters that I got from the Dollar Tree and my brush that I had used to paint the board, and I just dry brushed over each of the letters that I was going to use. I did this so it kind of looked distressed, but also to tone down the bold black color. And then I went ahead and put my letters on each egg, and of course I'm spelling out Easter. Once I had all my letters down, I went ahead and hot glued each of my eggs down to the board. Then to add a little bit more detail, I took my antique Waverly wax from Walmart and a makeup sponge, and I just distressed my board. So I just lightly dry brushed over the top and the bottom, and then I went around each of the eggs as well. I think this added so much to the look of this project. Then I lightly sanded over each of those letters to give it a more rustic look. Next, to protect my letters and my scrapbook paper, I went ahead and put some Mod Podge over each of the eggs. To hang my project, I'm going to take this nautical rope that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I cut a long piece off and then tied a knot on one end. Then with a generous amount of hot glue, I'm going to go ahead and hot glue it to my board. Now, I could still see where the staples were originally on that board, so that's just what I used to tell me where to glue the knots on. So I did a knot on each side of the rope and then hot glued each one down. Now you do have to hold each of the knots down to get it to stay, but if you hold it down long enough, this has been hanging for about a week now and it has not fallen or anything. Now you can always add permanent glue too if you want, but hot glue worked for me. So after they were glued on, I just went ahead and cut off any excess. Then I wanted to add just a little bit more detail, so I took some berry vine again and just simply wrapped it around the rope. I think this sign came out so adorable, and I absolutely love how it's just pastel and very colorful, and it is actually in the entrance in my mom's foyer in her home, and it just has such a bright spring look. I love how this came out. It is just so cute. But what do you think? That these are the paint colors that I will be using during this video. I like to make all of my decor very cohesive, so that way it all ties in together. So whenever you see me using a certain paint color, it's gonna be one of those. All right, let's get started. The first thing I used was this wooden crate from the Dollar Tree. Now this one was the one that did not have flats in it. This one is all one box. It just has like little indent. And I used my heat gun to go ahead and take that sticker off the top. Next, I used that ballet slipper from Waverly, and I painted the top part of the box and the very top of the box too. Then I decided that I wanted to paint the sides of the box in the ivory chalk paint from Waverly. That way it looked like pages. We're going to make a little mini book. Book stack. I absolutely love making these little mini farmhouse book stacks for the tiered trays. I've been making them for literally every holiday and season, and they are just so cute, and they really are the perfect fit. Next, I took that spring green from Apple Barrel and I painted the middle slat of my little book stack. Then I took the lavender color from Apple Barrel and I painted the bottom. I am absolutely loving the pastel colors this year for spring. They are just so pretty, and I've always been such a pastel girl around spring and Easter time, so these three colors together just look so good, and that's why you're going to see me use these three colors throughout the whole video on my tiered tray. Just then I took some ivory paint and I just painted the insides of the indents of my little stack just to give it some definition, and then I went ahead and sanded it down. Now I did kind of paint over it a little bit where I saw fit if it was just too much ivory. Next, I took these stencils that I also got from the Dollar Tree and some white Waverly chalk paint, and I stenciled out "Every Bunny Welcome." Now when you do this, you want to start at the top, and then I like to put my words all the way to one side, so you want to start with the last letter first. After my words were on and they were dry, I took my sand sponge and I sanded lightly over the top. That way it gives it kind of a rustic look and makes it all blend in. Then I took this pink burlap ribbon that I got from the Dollar Tree and I hot glued it going down the middle of my book's long ways. I did this so I could cover the holes on the sides, and I thought that this was a great way to do that. So I went ahead and put that pink ribbon down first, and then I took this really neat white sparkle ribbon, and I don't know where this came from. This was in my mom's stash and I kind of stole it, so now it's in my stash, and I really don't know where she got it, but I just thought it was so pretty and really reminded me of Easter and spring. So I went ahead and hot glued that to the center of that burlap pink ribbon. So I don't know if you have seen this at your Dollar Trees yet, but they started selling colored twine. Look at that huge roll of colored twine. I was so excited when I saw this because twine can be pretty expensive. So the fact that they're selling colored twine, and look how cute that is. It's like the striped twine. So I was so excited. I picked one up in every color because you can use them for every single holiday. So I took the yellow striped and the purple striped, and I hot glued both of those in the middle of that white ribbon, and I just thought that added the perfect colorful touch. Next, I took both of those colored twines and I put them together and made just a simple shoelace bow out of them. Then I hot glued it down on the top of my book stack to the side. Next, I took these little roses that I actually pulled off a different Dollar Tree sign and I just hot glued them on the top. I believe I used 5. I used these 3 colors and then another 2 colors. Oh, actually, I think I used 6. But I just thought that these were so cute and added just like a really spring touch. Now, I like to keep the box kind of flat on top and really nothing. You're going to see nothing on the other side of that where the flower, opposite of the flowers, because this is a great stacking tool. You can put things on top of it. That completed my little book stack. Now, I'm going to show you the final reveal of all of this at the very end. Now, what is a tier tray? Of course, without a beaded garland. I love making beaded garlands too, so this was no different. So I tried a new method this time. I saw somebody, and I really wish I knew who it was. I don't remember, but they actually put the beads in plastic bags and then put the paint in there, and oh my gosh, it was so much easier. It took up so much less time than painting every bead. So I would highly recommend this. The only thing I would recommend that I didn't do and I realized I should have done was spray a little water in each of these bags. That way it's more like a stain and not so much a paint because they came out kind of thick. So I would just recommend putting some water in each of these bags. But this is exactly what I did. I just rolled it around. I put 8 beads in each bag and I have 3 different sizes, but in 2 of the bags I have the same size. I have 16 millimeter, I have 20 millimeter, and then I have another one. I'm not sure what it was, but I know it's got to be smaller than 16. It's those dark ones right there. Then I just poured a little bit of paint in each and just rolled it around. Now when I took these out, I put them on a plate. Put them on wax paper. Take it from me, because I was not thinking. I just thought that these plates were kind of waxy enough, but some of the paper did get on the beads. So when you take the beads out, because they're still going to be wet, you want to put them on wax paper. Then you want to let them completely dry. So I thought because I had this colored twine, I would use that to bead my garland, and I loved using this. It was kind of thinner than regular twine. The only thing I did was just add some hot glue at the end so it'd be easier for the beads to go on. Now, this is why I say to add some water to the bags, because the paint was so thick that they got into the holes. And so I constantly had to use that paintbrush, poke through all the holes. This did make the process a lot longer, but eventually I did get it all strung. Now this is the pattern I used. I used 1 green bead, 1 white bead, 1 large purple bead, and then 1 pink bead, and then back to the green. I did that the whole string until all my beads were used. Then when I was done, I tied a double knot at the end of the beaded garland on both ends. I did add some hot glue to tack it so that way the beads didn't go through the hole. So next I decided for my tassel, I was going to make it a little bit more colorful. So I took that purple colored twine, the yellow twine, the pink twine, and then the regular natural twine, and I gathered them all together and then wrapped them around my sanding sponge several times until I got the thickness that I wanted. Then I went ahead and took off my string and I bunched it all together. Now this is a new method I was trying. I saw someone do this. So I went ahead and took the leftover string from the beaded garland and wrapped it around the top part of the tassel. I just wrapped it and wrapped it and wrapped it, and then I tied it off. So I just tied it to each other, the yellow string to each other. I hope that makes sense. Hopefully by watching you can understand more what I'm saying. And then when it was all tied off, I went ahead and cut the ends so that way they were loose at the bottom, and then I gave it a little haircut to make sure that all the ends were even. I also trimmed down any pieces that were a little longer, and then I just used that remaining twine from the Beaded Garland, the yellow twine, and just wrapped the remainder around. Now, I do like to add some hot glue to my tassels, that way they don't come apart. So I just tacked it down with some hot glue, and then I also added some hot glue to the top of the tassel to the bead. That way it stayed in place. Next, I took this berry vine that I got from Hobby Lobby, and I wrapped it around that yellow twine that was up top. Now, I'm not sure that I would do this again if I made this again. I don't know. I guess it's pretty. Comment below and tell me if you would add the berry vine to your tassel. I don't know. I guess I keep going back and forth, but let me know what you think. But I wrapped it around, and then again I tacked it down with some hot glue for extra support. Next, I took a bunny out of this paint your own bunny set, and I got these at Dollar Tree, and I gave it a coat of ivory chalk paint from Waverly. After it was dry, I sanded it down. That way I brought up some of the natural wood from underneath. Next, I took all three of those colored twine spools and I gathered them together and again just made a very simple shoelace bow. Then I hot glued it to where a little bow tie would be. To complete our little bunny, I took one of these white pom-poms and glued it right where the little tail would be. Next, I took the other end of the yellow string on my beaded garland and I tied the bunny to the garland. I made sure to tie it several times, that way it did not come off. I believe I also used hot glue on this end too to give it some extra support. And that completed this super cute pastel spring Easter beaded garland. I love how this came out. Again, I am just loving on all of these colors this season, and I think that this just really screams Easter and spring. For my next DIY, I use these color your own eggs. Now, I got these ones at Hobby Lobby. Although I do know that Dollar Tree sells them, I'm just having a really hard time finding them. So I gave up and just went to Hobby Lobby and got these ones. And they're actually $12 a pack, and I got them for 40% off. So it wasn't that much more. So I just took 2 of my little eggs and I used the heat gun to get the sticker off, and then I sanded down the black wording. Next, I painted one of my eggs in the ballet slipper from Waverly, and then I painted the other one in the ivory chalk paint from Waverly. Then I took 4 of these little blocks and painted 4 of them in the ballet slipper, and then I painted 8 of them in that ivory chalk paint. Now, one thing that all tier trays seem to need are risers. So I decided I was gonna make some themed risers here. That way they go with the Easter theme, but they also serve a purpose. So after I painted those 4 blocks, I got smart and I was like, oh wait, I can just do the same thing that I did with those beads. So I put the blocks in that bag and hello, it worked perfectly. I don't know why I didn't do that the first time with those other 4 blocks. So after all my blocks were dry, I took 4 of them and I hot glued them to the bottom of my ivory egg. Then I took the other 4 and hot glued them to the 4 that were already on there. So this riser is going to be a little taller than the other pink riser. Now after pushing the blocks down on top of the other one, some of the hot glue did squeeze out, so I just went ahead and cleaned that up with that little makeup tool, and then I just touched up all the paint on all the blocks to make it look better. Then I took that other pink egg and I only hot glued 4 on this. Now again, like I said, this one is going to be a little shorter than that other one, that way to change it up just a little bit. Now, to make these look even cuter, I took some black acrylic paint and a paintbrush, and I gave each of my eggs this speckled look. So I just filled my brush with black acrylic paint, and then I just rubbed it all over I just like sprayed it all over my finger. Now it was kind of messy, but it really did work. And what I noticed was the more paint you have on your brush and the closer to your egg you get, the more speckles you're going to see and put on there. So you definitely want to get close, but without actually touching the egg. But I thought that these turned out so cute. And how perfect are these for a tiered tray? The next DIY is so easy. So I took one of these mini terracotta pots that come in a 3-pack at the Dollar Tree, and then I took some orange acrylic paint and some white Waverly chalk paint, and I mixed it all together to kind of make a light orange color. So I just kind of mixed it until I got it to the color that I liked, and then I brushed it all over the pot. So after I got that first coat on there, I kind of decided I wanted to add a little bit more orange. So what I did was I took a distressing brush and I just dry brushed some of my orange acrylic paint all over my pot. That way it kind of was two-toned, and this ended up turning out so cute. Can you guess what we're making here? Next, I took some Waverly chalk paint in white and did the same thing. I just dry brushed it all over my pot. Look at all of those colors and the textures. Next, I took this little succulent plant, and I thought it was a little too dark green for me. So I took that spring green paint from Apple Barrel, and I just kind of lightly brushed over all of the stems of this succulent. Then I took some floral foam and I cut off a little piece to fit right inside of my pot. Now I did not want to push it all the way down. I wanted it to be closer to the top, and then I hot glued my little succulent into the foam. Did you guess what we're making? We made a little mini carrot. Is that what you saw too? I don't know. I thought it was a cute idea. I hot glued some of the stems of the succulent to the side of the pot. That way it makes it look more spread out. But I thought this came out super cute. But you're gonna have to let me know what you think. For our next DIY, I used these little jars that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I picked these ones because it kind of looked like a basket, like basket weave, and I really loved the look of them. Then I grabbed this pack of mini crayons and that look like bunnies. So I took the lids off of the jars, and then I hot glued one bunny to the top of each of the lids. Next, I took my ballet slipper paint and painted one of the lids with the bunnies with that. Then I also painted one with the lavender paint and the spring green paint. Now I did give each of them 3 coats. While those were drying, I took one of the jars and I wrapped my pink colored twine around the lip, so the top of my jar, several times and then tied it off. I just thought that this would add a little bit of color to the bottom of the jar. Then I did the same thing by using the purple twine, and then I also used the yellow twine. I did 1 color for each of my jars. Now, as I was tying the twine on, I would check with the other jar to make sure that I had the right thickness, and that way it all matched. I did use some hot glue to tack down all my ribbons on each of the jars. Next, after the tops were all dry, I took some Mod Podge and I painted over each of my lids. That way I protected the paint. And that left me with these super cute candy jars. You could put jelly beans, the pastel M&Ms or peanut M&Ms, or the little chocolate eggs in these. That's exactly what I plan on doing, and they are going to provide a great little snack for my tiered tray. These are probably my favorite creation out of this whole video. I loved how these came out. This next DIY is super easy. I took this pack of little mini buckets or pails from the Dollar Tree, and they are a 3-pack. We're only going to use 1, but you could actually make as many as you want and put them all around your tray. Then I took some floral foam and I just cut a piece that would fit perfectly inside. Next, I took some of this reindeer moss and hot glued it to the top of my foam. Next, I cut down a little bit of a skewer and I made sure to get the pointy part, and I painted it white, and then I stuck it in the middle of my foam. Next, I took one of these speckled eggs out of the pack of the Easter eggs. Now, these are not the ones that come in like that carton. These are the ones that you can actually open, as you see here, and fill with candy, and you actually get more bang for your buck if you go this route. So because it did open, I did hot glue it shut. Then by using my hot glue gun, I kind of melted a hole on one end of my egg. Now, I made one little mistake here. Let's see if you can figure it out before I tell you. But all you have to do is stick your egg right on that skewer. Then I took some of that purple twine and I wrapped it around the lip of my little bucket, and then I made a bow and hot glued it on top of my twine. Okay, did you figure out my mistake? I accidentally put the egg on upside down. Now, I did notice this before I took pictures and everything. I noticed right after I finished. So I just did the same thing. I just took the egg off the skewer, made the hole on the other end, and poked it through. But how cute is this little egg in a bucket? And like I said, you can make a few of them with different colored eggs and put them all around your tiered tray. This would be great to put on top of those stacked books. Remember how I said that I like to put things on top for different heights, and it's just more appealing to the eye when you see different heights and layering and things like that. I thought this came out so cute, and I can't wait to add it to my tiered tray. Okay, so I might have fibbed. This is actually my favorite DIY out of all of them, but those candy jars were a close second. So the first thing I did for this last tiered tray spring decor idea was take this plunger, and I used my heat gun to take off the tag. Now I'm going to be using a new tool here. I just got this at Lowe's. It is a miter saw and box. So I thought this would be the perfect DIY to use it on. So I took a ruler, and yes, that is a psychedelic ruler, and I measured out 5 inches. Then I went ahead and took my saw and cut it down. For this, we're going to be making the little mini rolling pins. Now, Hobby Lobby does sell these, but I cannot find them at any Hobby Lobby near me, and I think they might be sold out online. So I decided I was just going to make my own, and I love how these came out. And I absolutely loved using this miter box and saw as well. I think it was around $10, $11, $12, something like that, but it would go a long way. And think of all of the crafts now and the DIYs that I could make with this. So if you're looking for one, I actually found one on Amazon that I can link to this description box below, and you can pick yourself up one too. I mean, it is just a great deal. And like I said, you could really do a lot. Now, I decided to make 2 rolling pins, so you're going to want to cut out 2 5-inch little rods. So what I did was I painted both of them in white Waverly chalk paint. The next thing I did was take these letters that I actually got from Walmart, but they were like 98 cents, so very affordable. And I spelled out the word hop. I made sure to start with the P first and work my way in. The next thing I did was take my ballet slipper and paint the whole thing with that. After my paint was completely dry, I took this little knife and just peeled up all of the letters. Now I kept this part in here because look how satisfying that is. Look at those nice, perfect, clean lines. But now my word is white. I loved how that came out. It is just so cute. Now I did take my white paint marker and just made a few little touch-ups. So for the ends of my rolling pins, I'm using these earplugs. Now these also came from the Dollar Tree. Now ignore the fact that they are brown. I originally painted them in the Waverly Antique Wax, but I'm actually going to be painting them in white, as you'll see in just a little bit. But all I did was hot glue these down on each of the ends, and look how cute these came out. I absolutely love these. Now this is where I decide that I'm going to paint them white. Now, after the ends were painted white and they were completely dry, I took that yellow twine and I just wrapped it around the little end that had the word on it and made a little bow, and that was it. It was so easy to make, and these are so fun. They're actually kind of addicting to make. I wish that I would have made more than 2 because there's just so many spots on your tier tray where you can put them. For my other one, I actually painted it in lavender and put the word spring, and then I used the purple and the pink and made a little bow on that one. They are just adorable. Definitely my favorite, but you're gonna have to let me know what you think about these. And now it's time for our final reveal. Well, as you can see, these are not on my tier tray yet. you're just gonna have to subscribe to my channel and hit that little notification bell so you can get notified when I upload my decorating my tier tray video with my coffee bar. My tier tray always goes by on my coffee bar. That way I can put some little cute knickknacks in it. So you're just gonna have to subscribe so you can catch it. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you loved what you saw, and check out some of my other videos. If you loved all these, you're gonna definitely love everything else that I have to offer. So you're gonna have to let me know down in the comments which one of these was your favorite. Was it the little egg in the pail, or the beaded garland, or was it the stack of books? You already know my top two. Definitely the rolling pins and these cute little candy jars. I cannot wait to fill those with yummy, yummy candy. And I bet my little 3-year-old can't wait either. I want to thank you so much for watching my video today. I hope that you got some great ideas and got some inspiration on how you can decorate your spring and Easter tiered tray. I can't wait to show you what I have in store. So definitely like my Facebook page and follow me on Instagram. For my third Target Spot DIY, I got this amazing boxwood, I believe it is, wreath for $3 in the Target dollar spot. And then I pulled out this sign that I got from the Dollar Tree. I plucked off the little metal bunny on the front and keep that near because we will be using this for this DIY too. And then I turned my sign over, cut off the hanger and the tag, and then gave this a really good coat of the Waverly Antique Wax. So next I wanted to achieve that chippy wood look. So I did that method that I learned from Windy City Crafts, but I believe I did it wrong. So I'm going to tell you what I did, and then I'm going to tell you where I think I did it wrong. So you can see that I'm spreading Vaseline or petroleum jelly all over this board. You don't want to do this. Apparently you're just supposed to do it in like random spots. You're not supposed to put it all over the board. So the next time I do this, I'm going to try doing it like that. Then once your jelly is all on, you're going to take a top coat, and I used Waverly chalk paint in ivory, and I painted it all over the top. Then you can see why I think I did it wrong, because now you have to let this completely dry. But when I scraped it, it scraped up so much. I did not mean for it to scrape up that much. So then I just took that brush that had the ivory paint on it and I just brushed it over. Now the end product did look kind of cool, like it really did look chippy, but it was just a little too chippy and like big chunks for me. So I just went ahead and dry brushed over those big chunks, and I think that this really created the look that I was going for. But next time I'm going to be sure to do it right. So next I took that wreath and I cut the tag off, and then I just inserted some Dollar Tree flowers that I got. So I got really pretty pink baby's breath, and then I got, well, that's what they're calling it. That's what they call baby's breath apparently. And and then I also used, I believe they were fox tails. Ignore that pink ribbon. I was going to do something with it and then I ended up not doing it, but and then I just took it out. So just ignore that. But yeah, I just took off the stems off of the bunch of baby's breath, and then I just hot glued them in there. Now be very careful because this is thin. You're going to want to use your finger protectors or your little makeup applicator thing that I'm using there, the pink tool. But I just randomly put these in, and I thought that this created such a spring look. Now I did leave a space up top where I didn't put any flowers. That way I could put a ribbon around there. So you're definitely going to want to leave a little space, and you can see where it is right on top. While you watch me arrange all these flowers, I just want to take this moment and thank you so much for all the love and support you have given my channel. I started this because I have a love for crafting and DIYing and decorating, and it's really been so much fun talking and speaking with all of my subscribers and followers, and I have just really enjoyed it. If you don't mind hitting that subscribe button and then hit that little bell too, that way you can get notified next time I upload a video. I have a ton of ideas and content coming up, and I wouldn't want you to miss a thing. Okay, so after I got all my flowers on, I took this pack of glittery, colorful eggs, mini eggs from the Dollar Tree, and they were just a little too colorful for me, so I just dry brushed some ivory paint on all of the eggs just to kind of dull down that color, and I love the pastel look that this created. Next, I arranged all my eggs onto my wreath and I just hot glued them down. Now, I kind of made a couple of them hidden, like underneath the flowers as I'm doing there. That way it's not so bold with eggs in the front. They're just kind of peeking through, and I absolutely love how this wreath came out. Next, I took this super cute Easter burlap ribbon that I got from the Dollar Tree and cut off a little piece, wrapped it around my wreath, and then hot glued the ends together. Then I flipped the whole thing over and hot glued the ribbon to the back of my board. Next, I took that little metal bunny that I had taken off the front of that sign, and I hot glued that to the middle of my wreath. It was super easy. You just put a generous amount of hot glue at the bottom and then push it around like where the stems are, or the harder part of the wreath, the frame, I guess, of the wreath. And then for the ear, I just put a little hot glue on top of the ear and then pushed it down, and it hit the ribbon and it stayed perfectly. Next, I took that other vinyl decal that I got from the 2-pack in the Target dollar spot, and this one says Hello Spring. So I arranged all the letters. I just took my time. I went really slow, and then once I had all my positioning how I liked it, I went ahead and pushed all my letters down. I did go ahead and use Mod Podge to protect all the vinyl letters from coming up, and then I added a little twine hanger on the top. That way I can hang my sign. I absolutely love how this came out. It is so springy and just colorful and vibrant, and I honestly think this is the perfect Easter piece. What do you think? This last one really isn't a DIY, it's more of just styling these really cute baskets that I got from the Target dollar spot for $3 each. When I saw these, I knew I just had to have them. So all I did was just take a handful of raffia and put that in the bottom of my basket. Now I did push it down so that way it wasn't so wild and crazy and it was more compact. And then I just took a pack of speckled eggs that I got from the Dollar Tree and just styled them on top. For my other basket, I did the same thing, except for this time I put more of those twine carrots right on top. I love these. These are like a perfect filler on a shelf if you need to just add something, or a layering piece, so you could put these up on a riser and then put something in front of it. I love doing stuff like this. It just is so cute, and I love all of these colors. And you could really fill these baskets with anything you'd like. I thought flowers would be really cute too. The possibilities are endless, but what do you think? For this first DIY, I used this egg stake that you can get from the Dollar Tree, and I just went ahead and pulled off the stake on the back. I did use my little scraper tool that I also got from the Dollar Tree, and then to get all the hot glue off, I just heated it up with my heat gun and then used my little razor to go ahead and peel it off. I also used the heat gun to get the sticker off the top as well. Then I sanded the whole thing down to give me a smooth surface to paint on. Next, I turned my sign over and pulled off those yellow foam flowers on the front. They were super easy to get off. Then I took my pink Parfait apple barrel paint and I mixed it with some white Waverly chalk paint to make a lighter color pink. And then I gave my whole egg a coat of that. I made sure to get the sides as well. I did not worry about the back. If you've been following me for a while, you know I don't care about backs of projects. But if you want to paint it or cover the back, you go ahead and do so. But I just made sure to give this a nice coat on the front. I believe I actually gave it 2 coats. Once my egg was all dry, I took my black acrylic paint and a paintbrush and just kind of splattered it on the egg to give that speckled egg look. Now I know that there was a cleaner way to do this. This is just the way that I could think to do this. So I started off with like a really small paintbrush, and then I went to this fan paintbrush, and it works so much better because the bristles were so loose, and so it was easier for me to kind of feather back and forth. Now the trick to this is the closer you get to the board, the more splatters you're going to get. So I found that it was better to get really close to the board without actually touching the board. And I just splattered it all over. Next, I took this crate that I also got from the Dollar Tree and gave the whole thing 2 coats of Waverly chalk paint in white. Then I grabbed that paintbrush again and did the same thing. I just kind of made it all speckled in the front, and I made sure to really make it speckled because I really wanted this to stand out. I also hit the sides as well. Now, when I was done with that side and I went to pick it up, I accidentally touched the top of that crate with my finger that had black paint, and I kind of really liked it. So I just went ahead and used whatever paint was on my finger and kind of just brushed it around the edges of my crate and the egg to kind of give it that distressed look. Once all my black paint had dried, I went ahead and hot glued the crate to the bottom of the egg. Now you want to make sure that the bottom of the crate is flush to the bottom of the egg. That way this will stand up on its own. Next, I took a piece of floral foam, and I happened to have a piece that fit perfectly inside, so I just had to add a little bit to the other side. And then I hot glued some of this green moss down into my crate. I made sure to push all the moss down, that way there weren't any wild and crazy pieces. Next, I took just a bunch of flowers that I got from the Dollar Tree. I believe this is called lilac. And then these are what the Dollar Tree are called baby's breath. That's not what I thought baby's breath was, but I'm just kind of arranging it, and I'm going in sections, so I'm definitely wanting all these flowers to spray out to the sides because I don't want to cover my egg, because obviously the egg is supposed to be what the focal point is here. So you're going to see that I put it all in, and then I kind of push all of the flowers spraying out to the sides to create more of a hole in the middle. That way the egg is shown. Next, I took these little moss bunnies that I found at the Dollar Tree, and I am loving these. I think they are so cute and add such a cute touch. And I tied a little shoelace bow with twine and then just hot glued it to where a little neck bow tie would be. Then I took my little moss bunny and hot glued that down into the front of my flowers. I just made sure to put a generous amount of hot glue, that way it's stuck on there, and it seemed to work. I've had this for a couple weeks now and it hasn't fallen off or anything, but just make sure to push down, put a lot of hot glue, and you should be good. And I thought that this turned out so cute. But as I was looking at it, I kind of thought that the front needed something. So I took this burlap ribbon, and it does have that red and white string around the sides, or cord. So I just cut it so I only was left with the burlap. Then I hot glued that to the middle of the crate. There, I'm just showing you the what I used, and it did come from Michael's. And I forgot to say that I also frayed my edges, so I just pulled out the strings on each side, and that way it made the burlap a little bit frayed. But then just using my hot glue, I just pushed it down and hot glued it all the way around my crate. Well, at least the sides and the front. Next, I took this really pretty light purple lace ribbon that I got from the Dollar Tree and just put that right in the center of my burlap, and that I put around the sides and the front as well. Then to hide those two little hot glue spots in the front, I just took some silver thumbtacks that again came from the Dollar Tree, and I easily just pushed them in there. And that completed this really cute egg crate that is a floral piece, and I'm definitely giving this to my grandma, and I think she's really gonna love it. But what do you think? This next DIY is so easy, and this was actually inspired by something I saw at Pottery Barn, and I thought it was so cute and I could definitely make it. So I picked up one of these plastic baskets from the Dollar Tree, and I specifically got the yellow one because I thought it would be easier to cover over with paint. And then I love this because it looked like basket weave, obviously. So all I did was give this several coats of white Waverly chalk paint. Now you could definitely take this outside and spray paint it, but when I was making this in Ohio, we had a huge winter storm, so that was not happening. Then I took a smaller paintbrush and just kind of got inside the little grooves that were still yellow. Next, I took this little bunny out of the little pack and pulled out the ribbon on top of his head and gave him 2 coats of white Waverly chalk paint as well. Now this is the next day, so I let both of my pieces dry overnight, And I just took my little bunny and figured out where the best place to hot glue my on the basket was. And I use Gorilla Glue Stick, so I knew this was going to be a strong hold. I can go ahead and put a link in the description box so you can pick some up from Amazon. And I just hot glued this little bunny onto the basket, and I thought this was so cute. And how easy was that? It cost me $2 to make. I'll show you the one from Pottery Barn. Here it is, and then here is mine. Last DIY, I picked up this plate and this bowl from the Dollar Tree. I purposely made sure that they were matching, and by using the adhesive super glue that I also got from the Dollar Tree, I put some of that glue down and some hot glue for the permanent hold and instant hold, and I just simply glued the bowl on the bottom of the plate to make a little cake stand. Now, I wanted something to display my little candy jars on, so I thought this would be the perfect idea. Truth be told, I kind of wish that this was a different color and that it wasn't so bright blue, I guess, but I think it came out really, really cute. So I went back to those decals and I just picked one out that I really loved. At first I was going to go with this bunny. I thought he was super cute, but then I saw this Happy Easter decal, but when I put it down, obviously it kind of blended. So I took my Waverly chalk paint in ivory and a chippy brush, and I simply just lightly brushed over the plate. Now this actually dulled down a lot of that blue, so that kind of solved a little bit of my problem, but I really loved how this turned out. I thought it was kind of springy, and look at that texture on there too. I think that was super neat. So I just basically dry brushed all that ivory paint on there, and I wanted to make sure to get the bowl as well. That way it was all matching and it was cohesive. But the trick to this is you want to definitely make sure to paint in one direction and keep that direction the entire plate, because you don't want to have a lot of different brush strokes. But I loved how that came out. Then I went ahead and put my Easter decal on, and then I went ahead and chose some little eggs and flowers to kind of decorate around my other bigger decal. Once I had all the decals how I liked it, I went ahead and took my Mod Podge and I brushed over the entire plate and the bowl as well. This is to protect the decals and the paint on each. I think this stand added so much color to my coffee bar, and although the blue isn't exactly the right blue that I would have liked, I think that this still turned out super cute, and it did make a great display for my candy jars. But you're gonna have to let me know, what do you think? Thank you so much for watching today's video. You are amazing if you stayed this whole time. If you loved these DIYs, check out these other videos that I've attached. Until I see you again, I'll craft with you soon. Bye!